heart. So I'm really proud of him. It's been a hard year. He was captain of the soccer team, and he missed his senior soccer season, so that was hard, and senior prom. And he also got accepted into the Gary W. Rollins College of Business at University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. So I'm very excited for him there. He got a scholarship as well. So I'm just a braggy mom today. Just let me be a braggy mom one day, because I'm so happy for him and for our family. So anyway, yay.
Is this Brentwood High?
We're in Franklin.
Franklin, okay.
Yeah. So super excited about that. So thank you for celebrating with me for my son. Tomorrow we get to throw our caps.
Congratulations.
Hey, Keely, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Is that Harold?
Well, this is Rod Freeman,
Rod,
and
okay.
I'm on my phone today because I don't have my computer. I'm not in town, but I'm happy because I get to hear what Ken has to say. Ken, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I sure wish I could be there to say hello to you. And I miss seeing you at Rotary, and trust that you're doing well and looking forward to the meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rod. I appreciate that.
So,
Kaylee?
There's Harold, yes.
Yeah, I've got a happy buck. Am I on?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Last Sunday, my 18-year-old grandson outside of Atlanta in Peachtree Corners pitched a no-hitter. He was one walk away from a perfect game. So that was really, really exciting. I was not there. I was able to watch it on it's called Game Changer, which is, some of you may know, is a really incredible app for sports today. He's a graduating senior. He'll be going to Johns Hopkins University on a scholarship and to pitch in college. So it was a great way to kind of end his pre-college career.
congratulations.
Congratulations, Harold.
That's amazing. Yes, definitely congratulations. Well, I'll jump in and do the proud Papa congratulations senior moment as well. I also have a graduating senior. All the things that Beth said are true across the entire class. But I think because of that, it's a truly special class. I'm really excited to see what the class of 2020 will do in the world. I think it will be an amazing generation of students. I'm particularly proud of my also firstborn, who is graduating this weekend, and she will be, she's going to be the salutatorian for Franklin High School, and she will be attending Dodge College for Cinematic Arts at Chapman University, possibly in Orange County, California, if they have classes on campus. But we hope that that will in fact occur and that she will be able to go and have an amazing freshman year.
Wow, good.
I guess I'll throw one in there. My granddaughter just got her results back on her advanced placement test, and I have no idea what any of this means, but apparently she scored a 4, which means she would do well in a college class. She just finished the 9th grade. We think she's going to be all right.
All right, any more happy bucks before we move on? All right, a couple of announcements. I have this terrible fear that you are not going to be able to hear me, and so just, oh, you can hear me, okay. A couple of announcements, like was mentioned in Reflections yesterday, the board met earlier this week and decided that setting of any specific timeline for returning to in-person meetings needed to be deferred until the board of directors is meeting next, which is in August. We'll continue to meet online only until then. We hope that things will improve and that the surge in cases will reverse and that we'll be able to meet safely in person sometime as soon as possible. But in light of that, we also voted to reduce regular member dues to $165 for this quarter. That's a different approach than we took for last quarter, primarily because RI dues and the annual district dues come out for first quarter, where they did not come out in fourth quarter last year. This is the first quarter of the Rotary year. So those dues all come out. And so the board determined that $165 was the right amount to keep enough in the operating budget to continue regular operations that are not meal related and also pay those dues. There will be no changes to Rule of 85 dues. Those will continue as they always have. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. Again, that's all in reflections. I just wanted to make sure I made that verbal announcement in case you had not had a chance to read that. Also, as you all, if you're currently in this call, you know that we have a new link for our Zoom meetings. Congratulations on all successfully making it here today. Please use this link going forward. Sarah has told me this morning that she is working on sending calendar invitations out to every individual member, so that if you'll accept that invitation, even if you're not able to be at the next meeting or any of those meetings, if you'll accept the invitation, it will automatically pop up on your calendar every Friday, and you can go there conveniently and hit that link when you are able to attend a meeting. Again, Devin and Linus are working tirelessly. I cannot say enough thank you to what they are doing every week. But they would love to have some additional help with the Zoom meetings and making all the technical preparations. So if you have some sort of technical expertise and would like to learn Zoom, or if you know Zoom backwards and forwards already and would love to be able to help Linus and Devin out some, they would very much appreciate your help. So if you would contact me or Linus or Devin in the coming week, we'd sure appreciate that. Any other announcements before we dig into the meat of the meeting? All right, I'm just reading through the chat. Nobody has signed in to the old meeting. That's amazing. So every single person who wanted to join the meeting today clicked on the correct link. I actually am shocked and amazed and very happy to see that. And I'm glad to see that Mike Barrett has returned. Even Alan Treadway. Is Alan on? Alan, are you on? He's currently sitting at the Martin Center. All right, so I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today. Bob Sinclair sent him our way, but many of you on the meeting, as Rod has already mentioned, know Ken. Ken Arney has served 47 years with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, Tennessee Department of Agriculture, Division of Forestry, and USDA Forest Service. He has served as state forester for Tennessee from 1994 to 2001 and was the deputy regional forester, state and private forestry for the Forest Service in the 13-state southern region for 17 years before being named regional forester in 2018. As regional forester, he has responsibility for the management of 13 million acres of forest land on 14 national forests, land between the lakes, Savannah River Department of Energy, forest land in South Carolina, all sorts of amazing things. The regional forester also has responsibility for state and private forestry program that works with all 13 state forestry agencies in the programs of fire, forest health, cooperative forestry. I know he's been involved in multiple hurricane relief efforts as well. He's also been a champion of large-scale protection and restoration efforts like America's Longleaf Pine Restoration Initiative and Shortleaf Pine Restoration Initiative. I thought there was only one length of leaf, but there you go. Ken is also a member of the Society of American Foresters, past chairman of the Southern Group of State Foresters, and past president of Brentwood, Nashville Rotary Clubs. Ken is a native of Tennessee and grew up on a family farm with his family that his family still manages, and he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in forestry from the University of Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, I welcome to our club, Ken Arney. Take it away, Ken.
Keely, thank you. A sound check. Can you hear me? And I apologize, folks. I'm not able to get my camera to work. When I signed on at 11:30, the camera was working. It quit, and I'm reluctant to start tinkering with it as I'm afraid I'll cut everything off. But it is indeed an honor to be with you. And on the line also helping me with the presentation is John McMillan, who is our Director of Communications for the Regional Office for the Forest Service in Atlanta, where I work. And John, are you able to join and get the video going? Keely, can you see slides that John would have up?
Yes, I've got his screen share is showing, so I think he's still working on getting it into slide format, but we definitely can see his screen. Okay, good deal. Well, thanks again. As I said, it's an honor to be with you all. And I really have a soft place in my heart for the Brentwood Rotary Club. I was fortunate to be a part of the club from the late 80s until about 2002. I moved to Atlanta to work for the Forest Service, even though our primary home is still in Brentwood, in 2001. But just with my travel schedule, it was just impossible to keep up with attendance. But I was fortunate to be a part of the Rotary Club mid-career. And having that experience working with high-performing individuals, I remember my dad used to tell me as a teenager, you know, you're a product of who you hang out with. And I really believe that's true as adults as well, as we're a product of who we hang out with. And getting to hang out 15, 16 years with Rotarians really prepared me for the other jobs that I've had in senior leadership positions with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture in Tennessee as state forester, and then with the USDA Forest Service. So an honor again to be with you, and I've learned so much from so many of you. And it's really a pleasure to see the pictures and names on the screen, and just regret we can't be face to face to say hello and talk, but virtual is the world that we're in, generally speaking now. I'm going to talk some about the USDA Forest Service and some of the things that we do in the southern region, but more importantly, talk some about the value of forest in America. As an agency in the Department of Agriculture, we administer, the USDA Forest Service does 154 national forests and 20 national grasslands in the country, about 193 million acres in 40 states. We're organized into 9 regions, and the southern region that I administer spans from Texas to Virginia, south to Florida, and also includes Puerto Rico. We have 14 national forest units, 2 special units that Keely mentioned with Land Between the Lakes and Savannah River, and 2 national grasslands up northwest of Dallas, Texas, across the 13 southern states in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, we have the Juncke National Forest. If you've been on a cruise that stopped in Puerto Rico, more than likely you took a tour to Juncke. It's the most visited place in Puerto Rico outside the old fort there in Old Town San Juan. But I'm happy to be here and to talk about the southern region, what we do, and but I think as importantly is the value of forest in general. America's always been a country shaped by its forest. Forest once covered over half of the contiguous states, a staggering 950 million acres. Researchers have found that Native Americans have long worked the forest to harvest wood and create better conditions. Native Americans cleared the areas of forest to create a mix of herbaceous plants, shrubs and vines and seedlings, saplings, and even small trees. This type of habitat provided cover, nesting sites, and a variety of food sources for birds and other animals, and an excellent area for hunting or trapping. Native Americans also used controlled burns to modify the landscape to maintain wildlife habitats and sustain them. We use controlled burns as well in the southern region. In fact, we intentionally
in a prescribed way, burned about 1.5 million acres a year on national forests in the southeast. When the first Europeans arrived, many of the North American tree varieties were unknown to them, and even known species seemed alien because of the inconceivable size and sheer number of trees they encountered. At first, these forests were a frightening place for the new settlers to America. To them, the forests were full of strange animals, insects, and danger, but the forests were also providers. Trees provided materials to build their homes, fuel their fireplaces. The forests were full of game and trees that provided fruit and nuts like wild plums, cherries, acorns, chestnuts, and walnuts. The amber sap of maple trees became the main source of sweetness besides honey. And fermented birch, walnut, sassafras, and spruce was used to produce beer. As the Europeans began to move west, clear the forest, make room for growing settlements and farms, the forest around them continued to provide. American forests and their spectacular trees provided nearly perfect materials for shipbuilding. White oak furnished excellent ship timber and planking. Cedars, chestnut, and black oak were decay resistant and provided boards for outdoor and underwater sections of ships. Naval stores like provided turpentine, rosin, and pitch and tar, which were extracted from the pine trees to provide the fire-resistant pitch and build and maintain wooden sailing ships. And the white pines, which were so prevalent in the Northeast, grew with remarkable heights and were used to produce a larger mass than any of the firs provided to Europe, providing the young American country with superior ships. Forests were also an invaluable effort to open the West. Although America's entry into the industrial age with railroads and trains would be described with metaphors like an iron horse and the iron chain marrying the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, the entire railroad enterprise was more dependent on wood than iron. Early trains were powered by locomotives fueled by wood, and railroad ties were made from hardwoods like white oak and chestnut. As the country expanded west, telegraph poles were installed along the railways using many species of long, straight trees like jack pine, lodgepole pine, western red cedar, and Douglas fir. The railroad industry became the single largest consumer of wood in the country, and with the expansion west, we saw an increase in depletion of forest across the country. Timber was seen as a resource to be mined, and forests were clear cut of usable and profitable trees, and then loggers moved on. This practice helped raise a conservation movement among many Americans. Stirred by this growing conservation movement, Congress in 1891 enacted legislation to protect American forests by creating the first forest reserves. These eventually became the national forests. And national forests are different than national parks in that national parks are administered by the Department of Interior. Very little active management of the vegetation occurs other than mowing the grass and clearing vegetation along the major roads. A leading voice for conservation at the time was Guilford Pinchot. He came from a forestry family and was an early advocate and practitioner of professional forestry in the United States. He was actually trained in Europe. He put professional forestry into practice at the Biltmore Estates, which I'm sure many of you have visited near Asheville, North Carolina. In 1905, Guilford became the first chief of the Forest Service, and he also was instrumental in helping to establish the first forestry school in the United States, which was also on the Biltmore Plantation. And we currently manage that as a part of the Pisgah National Forest, and the Cradle of Forestry actually still has some of the restored old forestry school buildings there. In fact, I'll be there in a week after next with Secretary Sonny Perdue, his Secretary for Commissioner for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, meeting with a group of partners at the Cradle of Forestry. In the decades leading up to the 1905 founding of the Forest Service, rapid expansion in a nation rich in natural resources, putting the sustainability of those resources at risk. The job of Forest Service employees in those days was clear: to provide quality water and timber for the nation and protect local residents' access to forest resources. This was accomplished by ensuring national forests were working forests. It was also accomplished by creating more national forests out west. By 1908, Theodore Roosevelt more than doubled the forest reserve acreage. In 1911, Congress passed the Weeks Act, authorizing federal government to purchase private land if the purchase was deemed necessary to protect rivers and headwaters in the eastern United States. You may or may not know the headwater to the Cumberland River that flows right through Nashville is actually the Daniel Boone National Forest in Kentucky. Many of the national forests in the east protect the headwaters of the major streams. The Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia protects the Chattahoochee River that flows right through downtown Georgia. Today, our job in the Forest Service is still to provide resources and protect access to them, but our country and our world have obviously changed a lot since 1905. America's population and the demand placed on its natural resources have grown. Forest and environmental science have evolved and become more robust and specific. Threats to natural resources and our expertise in addressing them have obviously increased as well. Even with all of those changes, the Forest Service mission has remained relevant across time. Guilford Pinchot wrote in his book, Breaking New Ground, that conservation is the foresighted utilization, preservation, and a renewal of forest, waters, lands, and minerals for the greatest good, for the greatest number, for the longest time. In the past 100 years, total forest area in the United States has been relatively stable, and that's certainly true in the Southeast as well. Although a third of the United States is forested, about 766 million acres, 56% of that is privately owned, and about 44% is owned by federal, state, and local governments. Our role is to manage our national forest and grasslands for sustainable multiple uses, to meet the diverse needs of people, ensure the health of our natural resources, provide recreational opportunities, manage wildfire, guard against invasive threats such as invasive insects, disease, and plants, and work with state and private forest landowners, cities, and communities. The return we get from forests for that work cannot be undervalued, I don't think. Forests provide clean air. The forests absorb a third of the global emissions every year globally. Particles, odors, pollutants, gases settle on tree leaves. They're absorbed through the stomata or pores and effectively filter these chemicals from the air. Forests also provide clean water. Private forests in this country provide about 30% of the water we drink, the flow of water from those forests, and national forests provide about 20% of the nation's fresh water. According to the nonprofit group American Forest, forests are one of the most effective ways to maintain water quality and lower water treatment costs. Forest cover has been directly linked to drinking water treatment costs, so the more forest is a source watershed, the lower the cost to treat the water. Forests provide these benefits by filtering sediment and other pollutants from water in the soil before it reaches streams, lakes, or rivers. A good example of this is New York City. Upstream the Hudson River watershed, the city of New York spends a great deal of money on private forest land to cost share practices that keep those forests healthy. That is more economical for the city of New York than building additional treatment plants. These same forests, rivers, streams, and lakes also provide countless opportunities for recreation, hunting, and fishing. According to the outdoor recreation industry, people spend over $600 billion a year each year on outdoor recreation. And I'll bet this year it's going to be more than that with the amount of time people have on their hands with the pandemic. This generated about $80 billion in federal, state, and local revenue and employs over 6 million Americans. An outdoor recreation survey found that more than 140 million Americans made outdoor recreation a priority in their daily lives. Outdoor recreation is no longer a nice to have, it is now a must to have as leaders across the country recognize the economic, social, and health benefits of outdoor recreation. And certainly that's recognized in Brentwood with the city parks and even some of the new parks I've noticed recently that the city plans to acquire, and the value of that open space is tremendous. In the South, where 87% of forest lands are privately owned, we believe that working forests tend to provide the greatest good for the greatest number for the longest time. And certainly the South is looked upon as the wood basket of the country and actually of the world. We provide over 50% of the wood for the country and about 20% of the wood globally. It's the #1 export product for most of the large shipping facilities along the East Coast. Our state and private forestry organization reaches across boundaries of national forests to states, tribes, communities, and non-industrial private landowners as well. We provide technical assistance on forest health-related matters and financial and technical assistance in some cases to private landowners, communities, and businesses to actively manage and sustain long-term investments in non-federal forest land. We also work in partnership with federal, tribal, state, and local partners to manage wildland fire across the forest and grasslands and across the wildland-urban interface, which is, we call it the wildland-urban interface. It's really a transition zone between wildlands and human development. And fire is probably what you see a lot about the USDA Forest Service. We spend a lot of time focused on fire, not only fire suppression, which tends to be in the news, but also how we manage the landscapes so the landscapes are less susceptible to catastrophic fire. And a lot of attention is given to the expenditures, and we really put a lot of focus on wisely using the federal dollars that go into forest management, and especially the work with fire suppression and all the planning around fire. It's a particular challenge this year with the pandemic, and normally we move firefighters all over the country to address the need where it is, and that's a challenge with the pandemic now. But as it relates to working forests, they support paper and wood products industry in a big way. 2019 economic impact of the National Alliance of Forest Owners, paper, wood, furniture manufacturing industry contributes over $100 billion to the nation each year. And forest businesses supports almost 3 million jobs and a payroll of 128 billion. So you couple the economic impact of the wood products industry with the recreation industry, forests play a significant role, especially in the rural economies in many parts of the country. The paper industry, of course, ensures we have copy paper and envelopes and all the things, paper towels, tissue paper that we come to expect in a civilized society. And also lumber for our cabinets, furniture, flooring, wood framing. Most of our homes are generally built from wood. Wood products industry also provides innovative products. And so these are some of the more exciting things that are coming along now with practically every part of the tree anymore is used. Wood chips, sawdust are used to power mills. Trees are broken down into their basic elements, and cellulose is used in plastics. The LCDs on our flat screen TVs, that comes from a high quality cellulose from trees. And rayon textiles. If you get right down to it, almost anything that can be made from oil can be made from wood. Wood products are also engineered to create useful building components like plywood, particle board, oriented strand board, laminated flooring, and structural components and medium density fiber board and cross-laminated timber. And let me talk about that a minute. Cross-laminated timber we often refer to as CLT, and generally in the category in the family of mass timber products. But it's really revolutionizing building in the country. A builder today can use CLT to construct high-rise buildings entirely from wood. And the Pacific Northwest has really been the original epicenter of mass timber construction, both the manufacturing of the basic product as well as the construction of office buildings primarily. And Portland, Oregon and Seattle, Washington probably has the most of these buildings, although the demand for CLT in other urban areas is growing in Atlanta, Denver, Boston, and Chicago. We've actually got a 6-story office building that was built in downtown Atlanta from CLT. And I actually watched that structure come up. It was pretty close to our office there. There are over 290 mass timber buildings in the country, and I think close to 500 are either in the design or under construction. And a number of mass timber manufacturing plants are in operation or planned to be built. We've got one under construction in Dothan, Alabama. There's one planned in Arkansas, and actually that's going to be a joint venture with Walmart. Walmart plans to build their corporate headquarters from mass timber and want the wood to come from Arkansas. But I'm proud to be working for the Forest Service and working closely with all the conservation organizations that we work with, the wood products industry, and do what we can to help landowners, whether it's federal, state, or private, to keep working forest working and forest healthy. If you get right down to it, wood is the original renewable resource, and that products made from wood are biodegradable, store carbon, and forests that provide trees to the wood industry creates jobs, keeps forest as forest, so they continue to provide the greatest good for the greatest number of people over the longest time. It's a virtuous cycle where valuing forest provides so many wins for so many people. So with that, I really thank you for your time today. And Keely, I'm available if you have time for questions, but if not, again, I appreciate being with you and look forward to the time that we can be face to face.
Great. Oh. All right, let's see. We do have a few questions. Mike
I have a
Walker.
question. Bill Coyne?
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Ken, Bill Coyne.
Hey, Bill, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, sir.
I'm sorry you can't see me.
Well, no, I can't see you, but one day we will. Hey, I've got a question.
Yes,
Oak trees in Brentwood, or I imagine in Tennessee too. I've had two nice, big, huge oak trees in my yard, along with other species, and probably a total of 15 trees in my yard. My problem with one of the oak trees starting last year was it lost all of its leaves just about. And it looked like it was dead. This year, about, a couple of months ago, half of the tree started to sprout leaves. Not big, but some. What's going on? You know?
Bill, that's a high probability that is a pin oak. And pin oaks are commonly planted throughout Brentwood, and I've seen many that die. And generally, it's a bacterial leaf scorch that takes the tree. And once they get it, there's not anything you can do. There's not a cure for it. But you think about the pin oaks are planted where they don't normally grow throughout Brentwood. They're more common in the wetter areas in West Tennessee and the bottomland hardwoods. And when you get them on an upland site like most of Brentwood is, I know some of it is the floodplain of the Harpeth River, but generally speaking, they do okay most of the time, but then at times they just don't make it. And it's a bacterial leaf scorch, and once they get it, they're gone.
You know, you can drive through the neighborhood and I mean, we're not the only one. I mean, it's amazing that, you know, the number of the trees that are affected by it, you know, come out. All right, I was just wanting to see if there was something we could do, but I guess not. The only
if it's a pin oak, there's not. If it's something else, then that could be something else. But
you know,
if it's pin oak, there's not much you can do, Bill.
Okay, thanks
Good to
very
see
much.
you. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Yes. Harold Fogelberg, how are you?
Hey, Harold, my man Fogelberg, how are you?
I'm doing great. Two
Good.
questions.
Yes.
The property manager to our HOA is trying to get our attention about a problem, something to do with the ash borer to our trees. And what is the problem, and should we be addressing this?
Well, if you don't address it, Harold, they're not going to live, is the bottom line. And I'll tell you an interesting story on the ash. When we built we have a place in Chenoweth there off Concord Road, and when we built it, Sid Smith's son, I can't remember his name, did the landscape plan for us, and he put 2 ash trees in the plan in the front yard. And I told Beverly at the time, I said, Beverly, I don't think we need to plant those ash trees because there's a borer in Michigan that come from Japan or from China that's likely to get here. And that was 20 years ago, and they're now here. And we cut our ash trees down about 2 years ago. Is you can keep the ash alive if you use a systemic insecticide, and it works, but you've got to continue to do that. But if you do that and you have clover or any blooming plants around those ash trees, and the bees pollinate on those blooming plants, it's going to kill the bees. because the systemic insecticide is going to take up in all the plants around the ash. So it's not, practically speaking, it's not an easy thing to keep the ash alive. We're going to see a lot of them die. I was in Lexington, Kentucky last year, and a high percent of their ash are already dead.
Yeah, well, she's had trouble getting our attention, but it sounds like we need to address this and see, to try to do the right thing.
Yeah, if you've got some high priority trees in key places, you might want to save them, but broadly speaking, it's not difficult across the landscape. It's not practical across the landscape to keep them all alive.
Yeah. And secondly, do you still sell Christmas trees out at Arrington?
I do not. Once I started working out of Atlanta, I just couldn't keep up the pace. And we sold that land in Triune in 2007. So
you sold it too soon.
No, I think I sold it at the right time before things went south back in 2008 and 9.
Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm kidding you.
Hey, Ken, Don Robinson. How
Hey,
are
Don.
you? Been
Good.
a long time.
It has been.
You came to Rotary back many years ago and handed out little tree seedlings to all of us.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know I planted that one, whatever it was, in my backyard, and it's about 30 feet tall.
Well, that's great. That's great. And I think what that was the Juncke oak.
It's done beautifully, so I thank you.
Yeah, that's probably the oldest native tree in Brentwood, the Juncke oak. If you'll see some of the really large trees, most of those are going to be Juncke oak. And Bill, if you're going to take down your pin oaks, that's a good option to plant. Native species does well and very long lived.
Ken, we've got a question from Mike Walker also. Mike is asking, how are wilderness areas within national forests determined, and why is the land not turned over to the U.S. Park Service to administer?
Well, we administer, they're congressionally designated, and generally they're areas that have unique features, unique ecosystems that need to be protected. And of our 13 million acres that I have responsibility for leading the management on, we've got 87 areas that are designated as wilderness, 50,000 acres. And I don't know, Mike, we've historically managed those lands, even though they're probably more typical to the way that the national park manages their lands. But they're, in most cases, embedded within a portion of a national forest. So we have the infrastructure, the personnel there to continue that work. And generally, the management of wilderness would be managing trailheads that lead into the wilderness and to trails that traverse the wilderness, the walking trails. So I think there's a lot of practical reasons from the economic standpoint of the federal government that we continue to manage those. Unless you've got a compelling argument otherwise, if you do, we'll certainly have a conversation.
Let's see, we've got another one. Ken, can you please address solutions to the recent Western fires or possibly Western fires? I'm not sure which one. That's from Bob.
Well, I think that would be mostly talking about the Western fires, and I don't know. There's not an easy solution. Probably several decades ago, we felt like we could control all of the fires and prevent the catastrophic fires. And in a large portion of the land in the West, we've probably been too efficient in extinguishing fire and not letting fire occur and be a part of the natural ecosystem as much as we have in the Southeast. In fact, there's a book I read recently, The Tale of Two Fires, comparing the Southeast and the West. And fire, remember, whatever forest you're in, fire is a natural part of the ecosystem as common as the wind and the rain. It's a matter of the return interval for that forest ecosystem. And a lot of the forest ecosystems in the West need fire. And we're working actively to get fire inculcated into our management there. But a challenging part of that, it's so developed out there with human population and not willing to accept smoke. Whereas in the Southeast, we so commonly burn that generally the public accepts the smoke pretty well. And you can't make the case that smoke is good for human health. It's absolutely not. But if you look at the totality of the equation, it's better to have a little bit of smoke in a planned way than a lot of smoke in a catastrophic fire that may burn down the community too, as we saw with Gatlinburg. So it's a very complex problem, probably more so in the West than here, but it's complex in the East and the Southeast especially as well. But we're working on that. And I was on a call yesterday for 2 hours talking about the things that we're going to do, mostly focused on the West, to address how we do what we call fuel reduction with planned fires or mechanical treatment to protect the forest and protect the adjacent community.
All right, any other questions from the group? Got about 5 minutes before we need to end. I tell you what, that phrase keeps going back in my head, that the greatest good for the greatest number of people over the longest time. And I think any organization, if they put their actions to that test, will be doing well, including our own. It actually fits pretty nicely, I think, in the 4-way test with the will it be beneficial to all concerned. So that's great. Yeah.
Kenny, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, this is more of a comment than it is a question, but I think it's appropriate. Number one, those that were not in the club when Ken was there need to know that Ken, more so than anybody else that I can remember, practiced the 4-way test better than anybody I've ever known, and service above self. And he was always available to serve the club. I'll never forget that. When everybody else was running away from work, he was saying, "What can I do to help?" And so I'll always remember that with Ken. And so Ken, I appreciate that. The second thing is that I'm sitting back here on the back porch of our place over on Center Hill Lake that you helped me make a decision on. And I'm sitting here looking at hundreds and hundreds and thousands of trees. And so your comments to me today are so appropriate, and I get to enjoy what it is that you do every day. So thank you for your service above self, and thank you for what you're doing with the National Forest Service. So appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Rod. Good to hear your voice. Look forward to visiting soon.
Yeah, and I will add my thanks to Ken for coming and talking with us. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge on forests and the Forest Service. We appreciate you having Old Home Week with us and sharing your experiences with the Brentwood Rotary Club and being able to say hello to some of your old friends here. And we hope that you are not a stranger. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you, Keely. I appreciate it.
Before we adjourn, just one quick announcement from me, and if there's anybody else that has something that you need to throw out, we'll let you do that. But I don't know if this may be in opposition to Ken's forests. I don't know, but we do have a golf tournament coming up. One of the safest activities you can do outdoors for outdoor activities right now is play golf. There's plenty of ways that you can do the socially distant thing, stay outdoors and remain healthy. And we do have a golf tournament coming up. I say that may be in opposition to, because you sometimes have to clear a forest to build a golf course. But we won't talk about that. So we do have a golf tournament coming up in a couple of months. September 21st is the date, and we do still need sponsors. Specifically, renewals from last year's sponsors would be very, very helpful. Those are the kind of low-hanging fruit. If they sponsored last year, we'd love to have them sponsor again this year. So if you had one that you have not contacted yet this year about our new golf tournament date, September 21st, please be doing that. There's a lot of other tournaments that were postponed from earlier in the year and that were already scheduled for the fall, because that's a great tournament scheduled time. So probably even more competition than we had last year for the tournament. So please get out there and sell those sponsorships. Any other announcements from anyone else in the club before we adjourn? All right. In that case, everybody, thanks for being here today. Go out and be safe, stay healthy, and keep serving.
Goodbye.